Oh,
Holy, what
ah,
the? What the?
oh,
Patrick,
oh,
the hell are
help,
you?
help.
The hell are you doing?
I don't know. I'm a ghost, and I'm just a ghost
Only
that's been
I,
left.
only I may play
Who
with
said?
stupid
Who said you
Bombin
could?
the
Who said you're the only one that could do this?
I
Like,
did. God
oh,
damn it.
I'm a ghost in Venice. Ooh. I just like if you turn it off auto adjustment, you turn into a horrible ghost, like a really sad ghost that just goes to places that he wishes he could go. I don't even know where this
Like
place
these
is.
bricks, for instance, these squares, these colored squares. You're a ghost of color. God damn it. That is really
It's
unsettling.
really
I didn't like
dumb.
that. I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
care for
really
it.
dumb. So how are you, Alex? It is Friday. We are almost at the weekend.
It's true. We
Uh,
are.
how was
It's
your weekend?
My week has been all right. I got my NBA review done. Got a few other things done. Some other stuff done. I have a lot of events coming up in the next couple of weeks here. A lot of games I'm going to be going to see over the next. So I've just kind of been preparing for that stuff. Have you? How have things been going over on your end?
It's good. Just getting ready for Shocktober. Had some pretty exciting things line
You've
up.
you've told me about a couple of them. I'm very excited for you about these.
Yeah, yeah. Don't let anyone tell you that sending an email to a random address on a website that looks like it doesn't work doesn't pay off, because
Yeah.
sometimes it does. And
Sometimes there's a man on the other end of that email address who can still help you.
yeah, totally weird. Yeah, so I've got some cool stuff lined up for that. Some people might be able to infer what that is, but people that don't, I'm gonna continue to keep it a secret. And it's emboldened me now that it's
Mm.
if I have gotten this, like there are some other Hail Marys I can throw that I might as well just go for
Yeah,
at
why
this
not?
point. But I've lined up a bunch of people that are a lot of it's interviews. A lot of it will be I'm going to finally do proper reviews of like Outlast and Machine for Pigs, and
Cool.
got a bunch of blog posts about horror games, and I'm going to publish my Shocktober lineup of. Ideally, I would watch 31 films in October, but I don't actually do that. I probably watch about half, but I at least plan out 31 films, and yeah, and then a bunch of interviews planned that are both like people that are in games, like working on horror games or worked on horror games, and then people that maybe just kind of touch horror in different ways. So yeah, definitely exciting. So I'm looking forward to working and publishing all that stuff. But yeah, this week has been a lot of doing that and stressing out over this TEDx talk that I have to do next month.
Yeah, you've got that coming
Um,
up pretty soon here, don't you?
Yeah, well, October 19th, so there's
Yeah.
a couple of weeks. But today I have to turn in a rough draft, and so a lot, like every night has been I finish working, I eat dinner, I watch like an hour of television with Katie, and then it's just like staring at this document, trying to not be embarrassed by it. And then I felt like I finally had a breakthrough last night, and then I feel like I'm not totally embarrassed, and so then I sent it to a couple of people I trust that have done public speaking in the past, and I was like, please rip this apart. Like, I don't want to look like a total asshole. The only thing that like completely worries me about this whole experience is that I don't have any problem at this point just going up on a stage and bullshitting,
Hmm.
but I have to go up and speak for 18 minutes without a prompter, and I have to sort of like actually say something interesting. So, yeah, that part
See,
freaks
I
me
can
out.
say things that are interesting for a long time as long as there is a prompter telling me the interesting things to say. If I had to memorize an entire thing and actually make it good, totally off the top of my own head, there's a very good chance I would just melt into that stage. Like that would just be the thing that finally did me in.
Yeah, so I think the strategy that I've read about, and I think the one I'll end up employing is like you recite the speech over and over again, so that at least at the very least what you do is you get the beats down of what the
Right.
speech is, and then I'm allowed to have slides, and the
Mhm.
slides will be largely to illustrate what I'm talking about, but I can also use the slides to sort of like remind me of those beats, and then if you do it enough times, I'm not good at languages, but I made it through 4 Spanish classes, so I think I can at least get enough of it in my head. So I don't know. I have this huge relief off of me that at least I have 3,400 words on a page. That there's a document, there is something I could say, hopefully I will get it in a better place. But now I can spend this weekend like actually playing Grand Theft Auto 5 and Rayman Legends and enjoying myself and
Awesome.
not stressing about a thing that theoretically I have to get done. So,
Right.
yeah.
That
So
Grand Theft Auto is pretty good. You may enjoy it if you play some more of it.
I am definitely looking forward to it, and I feel like we're sort of now. It's actually interesting to watch the wave of criticism that happens with
Yep.
games like this. We're actually at, I think, now the more interesting phase, which is
Yeah.
that people have played decent chunks of the game and can start digesting the moments that really stand out. It seems the big takeaway from this game may not actually be, casual misogyny and racism, but may actually be this torture scene. I don't want to go into it because the game is still way too fresh, and I have not seen it yet. But I've definitely bookmarked a bunch of articles that appear to have really thoughtful commentary on, something that is certainly a big conversation in American culture and American politics. And this is the first time we've really seen it played out in a game in an interactive fashion. So I'm definitely interested to see and read more about that.
Yeah, I'd say it's that. I think there is something to be said about some of the portrayals of women and minorities and stuff. There's also just there's a lot of really interesting stuff in there about some of the later criticism I've been seeing just about kind of some of the tenets of that franchise that just have not continued, that have not aged well alongside the way the kind of the conversation and the tone of just kind of gaming and society have been over the years. And that's kind of been one of the more interesting things to me, is just realizing that a lot of the things I really liked about GTA that are front and center in this GTA are not necessarily to that game's benefit anymore.
Are you speaking to the Tom Bissell article on Grantland?
A lot of the Bissell article covered a lot of that stuff. Definitely some feelings that I've felt just playing through the game, just kind of things that have popped into my head as I've been doing certain missions and performing certain tasks and going, yeah, I don't know about this anymore, man. I don't know. I mean, GTA 5 is a ton of fun. I've been enjoying a lot of the world exploration and some of the missions, certainly the heist stuff especially. But there's definitely a lot of moments in that game where I'm kind of looking at it and I'm going, it's like someone told them other games exist and kind of told them what some of those things that they did to improve on open world stuff was, but then they never actually sat down to play it or try it or really cared to know about any of it. So I mean, we've talked about it before, but it is amazing to me how in a bubble that game really does feel.
Yeah, and for people that haven't read Tom Bissell's article, I highly recommend it. He continues to make me feel like a shitty writer every time he publishes something.
Killing it.
He also, categorizing what he wrote for Grandland as a review, I think it gets into confusing territory. He is writing for a different audience, writing,
it's a different kind of criticism.
And it's actual like when we talk about criticism, that's what he's doing, as opposed to what a lot of game reviews are, which are, A, still trying to find their voice, and then B, a mixture of, a product review and criticism. But anyway, so his sort of, like the end of his sort of the thesis of his article is that maybe Grand Theft Auto just isn't for me anymore, and that projecting what you want onto it is maybe sort of a lost cause. I don't think that absolves the Grand Theft Auto series from criticism, but
no.
I think there is a way. There's a tension in which I think some of the criticism is rooted in, I love this thing, I care about this thing, I've grown up with this thing, why isn't this thing growing up with me? And, sort of maybe trying to resolve that, which doesn't mean that you don't criticize the content that it has, but that also maybe understanding a little more of just what it is intrinsically, which I think is an interesting way to think about the series.
I agree. Well, I think that's enough GTA talk for today. We don't want to keep continuously inundate people with that stuff, but
there's plenty of headlines to talk about. There's a lot that went on this week. Do you want to kick us off with something?
Yeah, I mean, we might as well kick it off with the Steam business, because Valve has sort of been kind of laying claim to this week with 3 separate announcements, the third of which is coming today. But before that, on Monday, Valve announced that they are making their own iOS based off the Linux infrastructure. It is designed for living room machines, which
Steam machines.
Well, see, so as of Monday, those had not been announced. So they were just like, oh, these could run on living room computer machines. So we're like, okay, well, we know what's coming on Wednesday then, most likely. And then, lo and behold, the Steam machine was announced on Wednesday. These new living room-oriented PCs that will be coming from multiple manufacturers that are being co-developed with Valve. This is all stuff the OS was not something that we specifically knew about, but I mean, it seemed kind of to make sense in the context of what we already kind of suspected they were doing. Patrick, how do these announcements strike you based on what we had been speculating on for so long and now with the information we have in front of us?
I don't know if they've earned the right to do 3 of these based on the fact that the Steam machines, while the additional details and the beta test, certainly interesting. Not exactly a bombshell announcement. Like, we sort of already knew a lot of this. This was just filling in the details. The OS that is worthy of its own announcement, but I feel like that set a certain tone for what we were getting from the rest, and I'll be curious to see what the one is today. Based on how the FAQ ends on Wednesday, the big mystery yet to be filled in is the input device. And they seem to be indicating that they're going to be building their own controller, and that figuring out the intricacies of that controller are going to be predicated on user input in the same way the Steam machines are. So my guess is there will also be a controller that goes out. Maybe that controller will be more widely. Maybe that controller will only go to 300 machines that are going out based on Wednesday's announcement. But yeah, I mean, I think it's all extremely interesting. And what I really like about the details and the nuance when you look into what they're doing, they're just trying to offer a better way almost for other people or even for us that want to deal with less BS, but in no way are they introducing new restrictions that go along with these new features. There's no, that was the big tension with Microsoft and the Xbox One was like, well, if you want all this fancy digital stuff, well, then we're going to start locking you down and we're going to get DRM and always on. And with everything that Valve is doing, they're like, hey, we're going to make a box, but you can also upgrade it and you can hack it. And if they introduce a version of Steam with ads that somehow maybe subsidizes games or a subscription service, by making the source code for Steam OS available, they're saying that basically someone can go in and strip all that stuff out.
Right.
And they seem okay with that. We'll see how that all plays out in practice, but they're setting a certain tone that is so opposite of what the console manufacturers do. Even a company like Sony that has been much more consumer friendly, that it's really welcoming. It's more just like, here's another option, and not worrying so much about. I'm sure they've considered the consequences, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel so much like, hey, we're giving you this, so we're taking this in exchange.
Right.
And it's a really friendly attitude to have to these new features. So I'm curious if there will really. I think it would be a little bit of a letdown if all we see today is a controller. The idea that it's actually going to be Half-Life 3 is not something I actually expect, but I feel like Half-Life 3 is also in the category of The Last Guardian, which is just, don't worry about it. If it happens someday, then it happens. If not, I'm tired of worrying about it. So I don't know. We'll see. It's definitely curious. It's
not going to be Half-Life 3. It's never Half-Life 3. Okay, it's never Half-Life 3. Get that through your heads, everyone. For me, this is interesting because I have never ever considered getting a computer for my living room before. That has never really seemed like something I ever needed. I have consoles out there to play games and do plenty of other media things. The idea of adding a PC to my living room just seemed totally superfluous. If this is affordable and it's as functional as they say the iOS, or I keep saying iOS, I'm an idiot. Sorry. As functional as the OS they say it is. The streaming stuff works, and there's a good number of supported games because this is running off Linux infrastructure, so not everything on Steam is going to work on this right off the bat.
Right.
Because a lot of those games don't run off Linux, but that could change over time.
And they'll stream. That's
and they'll stream, and that's the key thing. If the streaming stuff works, because man, I have tried doing media streaming before off other devices, and it has driven me fucking crazy. It seems like this generation of hardware is going to find, with the consoles and whatnot, are finally going to be the one to maybe get over that hump and actually make that stuff reasonably easy. We'll see. But if this works as well as they say, I might actually be bought in on this. I might actually be down because I play a lot of Steam games these days. I didn't used to do that. I didn't used to really play stuff on my PC, but at a certain point, you know, I got a PC that was good enough to play a lot of these console games, and PC ports don't suck as often anymore.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these times this stuff actually works. So, you know, if I can just buy this stuff digitally off Steam and it'll work on the Steam OS, and you know, I can play it in my living room, I can't see a lot of reason not to go that route, so long as it, you know, it's functioning and I can upgrade it as necessary. Sounds great to me.
Yeah, I mean, the real key here, I think, is going to be a lot of the people that are interested in Valve's announcements. You know, I don't have numbers, but my guess is that a lot of them already have capable gaming PCs. But it's the idea of getting this in the living room, and so this high-end machine, which is the one they're going to be beta testing and sending out to 300 folks, is interesting, but is not the one I'm interested in. And so for me, it becomes a question of what is this low-end box? How does the streaming work? What flexibility does it have for different setups, for different houses, different apartments? How is it actually going to function in an actual environment that is not, you know, the very controlled and tested one that they have been building it in? And what's it going to cost? You know, the Apple TV is a knee-jerk purchase. It's $99, and I adore my Apple TV, if only for the function of AirPlay, of being able to send videos from my phone and my iPad and watching them on my TV. That was worth $100 for me, and having access to iTunes and stuff like that is fine and dandy too. But at $99, it wasn't. I didn't have to consider it too much. I could afford that in the right circumstance. So whatever Valve's low-end box, that price is pretty key to me. Like, if it's going to be a streaming box, but it still costs like $249, like that's probably pretty crazy. But if we're looking at a $99 box that is a capable piece of streaming hardware, you know, that gets more interesting. And that's where you know, we're probably not going to know too much about that till early next year, when they've said that some of this stuff will start rolling out. But that's when it starts to actually get really interesting to me. But this SteamOS stuff is also fascinating because you know, you had Stardock coming out this week validating Valve's claims that the SteamOS, you know, using a Linux kernel, is faster than, at least performance-wise, for their games than what they're getting out of Windows. And that sounds really compelling. And maybe the idea that they're on Linux means that they can make cheaper boxes that can run the games and thus be more affordable, because they can just sort of code to the box in a way that you can't do on Windows. So still a lot of questions.
I always very much enjoy it when people are actually able to shit talk something like Windows endlessly and then actually put their money where their mouth is. Because Gabe Newell has done nothing but talk shit about Windows for a very, very long time.
Yep.
And, you know, obviously he hasn't necessarily been in a position to really do anything differently other than just say, well, I hate Windows, so I want to make sure that, you know, stuff we make works on all these other platforms. Now he actually has his own damn OS, and he can do what he wants, you know, on this Linux infrastructure, and he can actually, you know, back up all that shit talking he's done of Windows over the years. Not saying Windows hasn't deserved it, because Windows has been kind of a shit show for a long time, but it's just actually kind of nice to see someone actually do something about it instead of just shit talking it.
Yeah, and then, you know, simultaneously the family sharing stuff has started going out to beta testers and those that have press accounts on Valve, of which I have one, and you know, came into the first limitation of family sharing, which makes sense, and maybe this was something will change over time. But you know, it's not as simple, unless I missed something, but I really don't think I did. It's not as much as like I can't just say, hey, I'm going to authorize Alex, and then like you click a link, and then your machine is authorized to access my library. Like, I have to go to your computer, log in, and then authorize that computer. Then I log out. Then you log in, and then you can access my library when I'm not using it. I get why they have that barrier, so that there's a physical element, and/or you have to trust someone with your username and password, and the kinds of people you would trust with your username and password are probably going to be close friends and family. But I can't help but be a little disappointed that I can't just authorize it remotely. Maybe that's something that will come eventually, but maybe that gets, you know, a little too loose in terms of how they want to allow people to share that stuff. But it's cool. But yeah, the limitations in place certainly make it sort of a limited feature in terms of how many people will actually end up using it, I think.
Word. All right, what do you got next headline-wise?
See, former Epic Irrational head Rod Ferguson
Yes.
starting a new 2K studio. He left Irrational back in April. He came on, I don't know, sometime in 2012 to
He was there
essentially
for about a year, I think, almost.
Yeah, to essentially get BioShock Infinite out the door. You know, from what I had heard about that project, was that they needed a closer, and Rod Ferguson has become pretty famous as from his dealings with folks like Cliff Bleszinski at Epic, and then coming in and dealing with Ken Levine, basically being able to take a look at a project and realize this is what we need to do in order to hit this ship date. And so
He's
that's
a
what he did.
closer.
And that's what he did with Infinite, and so I guess he's been rewarded for getting that game out the door, it being, you know, a critical and commercial success, and now he gets to head up his own studio. I doubt he will be sort of a design lead, but he is certainly going to be the head of the studio, and, you know, I'm curious to see what they let him go and do. I can't imagine this is going to be yet another BioShock studio.
Right.
After the debacle that was kind of 2K Marin. I liked BioShock 2, but, you know, then when they tried to pivot to XCOM, you know, sort of a mess. I'm not sure a closer could have done anything for that game. Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see what sort of leeway they give him. It seems like right now I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bunch of headlines that are, hey, Take-Two's using all this GTA money to invest in a bunch of new IPs and risk takers to hopefully establish a bunch of new things for the next generation, because you know, who knows if we get another BioShock, but I don't think they can sort of milk BioShock in the same way that they did for the last 5 years.
Now, we don't know at this point at all anything really about the project that he's presumably working on, and we don't really know who he's brought in at all for that studio at this point, right?
No. He all he did was tweet out that he was, it's official, I'm launching a new studio for 2K in the Bay Area with an exciting new project. Details soon. My guess is pretty soon he's going to be going on a hiring spree, is what those details mean, and not that we're actually going to hear about what he's up to. But who knows? I mean, you know, it's been since April. Maybe we'll get some details soon. But my guess is we may just get some broad strokes of what scope the game is, and then trying to get some people in there. It's probably going to be a shooter.
Sure. I am curious what this does end up meaning for 2K Marin, because I've heard some grumblings before that, you know, the Bureau probably isn't selling that great. And
really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard much of any rumblings about that game since it came out, pretty much.
Right.
And if you're opening another studio in the Bay Area, you know, kind of where you already have a studio up in Marin, you know, I'm wondering if maybe they're thinking about, you know, splitting some stuff out or doing some stuff there. I don't know. That's just me speculating. Just based on a few dumb rumors that I've heard here and there. But I worry about what could be up with those guys, because, you know, 2K Marin, they have obviously, like, BioShock 2 is an interesting game, and, you know, I thought, they did Spec Ops too, right? Or was that
no? Spec Ops it was not an internal team.
That was not an internal team. Okay. Well, they did do the Bureau, which had some promise but did not completely come together. So right. I don't know. I hope things turn out okay for that team, and I certainly hope things go well for Ferguson and his team, because, you know, that guy has a good history, and I'm curious to see what he can do with his own studio at this point.
Yeah, that is true. What else you got?
Let's see. Patrick, I want to talk to you about this, because this is very important news.
Okay.
The first trailer for the Need for Speed film has arrived.
Yeah, and let us disclose. We explored all avenues to try and stream this and watch this, but it turns out the YouTube app, which is built into the Hangouts, does not function during a Hangout on air. It only is a local Hangout. I imagine for bandwidth concerns. That's too bad. But yeah, that trailer's not very good.
No, it's not. It's not. It is exactly as weirdly heavy-handed as a movie called Need for Speed, starring Jesse Pinkman, should not be.
Mm-hmm.
It is dour in a way that, you know, a movie ostensibly about cars going real vroom vroom fast around a lot and occasionally exploding should not be. But here's what does give me some mild amount of hope for that film. One, it does star Jesse Pinkman, and you don't hire Aaron Paul unless you are going a little bit over the top with that movie.
He's gonna scream. He's gonna cry. He's
Yes.
good at doing both of those.
Yes.
Very good.
Two, Michael Keaton's in it.
Really? Was he in the trailer?
No. He's not in the trailer, but he's in the movie. He is the mysterious benefactor that is, like, running all the crazy street races, apparently.
Like, is it possible that the trailer is trying to sell this as serious drama, but it's secretly a B movie?
I don't think it's that secretly a B movie, because the original video they put out for that thing a while ago, which wasn't even really a trailer, it was like the director and Aaron
the E3
Paul,
video.
Yeah, that video just was like him talking about, oh man, it's about high octane action, cars going fast, and blah, 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 you know, like that.
Nailed it. Yeah.
He said, okay, well, this is what a Need for Speed movie makes sense as. So I think it's still that. I don't think I mean, I imagine, yes, there is some, like, probably some fairly terrible character drama in there somewhere, but I don't think that's the crux of the movie. I think the crux of the movie is cars going fast, which
I hope so.
Great.
Yeah. Like, it seems like this should just be a Fast and Furious ripoff, which was what I expected it to be, and then the trailer dropped, and it was hard to tell whether they were just trying to, like, counter-program by having a tonally different trailer, or if this is actually what it's going to be, like they're going for a serious drama. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if the trailer was sort of tonally different than what we get in, or less. The trailer shows less of the fun or the craziness that will be in the movie because they're trying to capitalize on the fact that Breaking Bad is ending, and you know, Aaron Paul is getting a lot of acclaim for his, you know, dramatic acting, and rightfully so. He's doing a wonderful job, and so you would want your trailer to drop in the middle of Breaking Bad ending, highlighting what he is being highlighted for in Breaking Bad. I can see why there would be sort of trailer synergy there. But yeah, I hope
really want to do that. They should have had him say "bitch" somewhere in the trailer, just to really kind of just hammer that point home. You know, really
just
get
staring
the
at
involved.
the camera and just bitch.
Yes,
and just like holding magnets, just like dropping a bunch of magnets. So
really, I mean, at this point, that movie just needs to be a more expensive version of Redline, and I think that, you know, I think the actual movie will probably be something pretty close to that. I don't know. I always thought a Need for Speed movie was kind of dumb to begin with, because, I mean, who cares about the plot in Need for Speed games except for that one that had Razor Callahan in it? And it's obviously he's not playing Razor Callahan, so who gives a shit?
Oh man, what if though, like, it wasn't based on that, but what if there's a character named Razor? Man, that would be awesome.
You will see me giggling like a happy little schoolgirl if that comes to fruition. What I was going to say though is, no matter how dumb this movie turns out to be, it can't possibly be dumber than a Gran Turismo game. There's no way that this, you know, at least there's some kind of conflict in Need for Speed that exists that you could build off of. Gran Turismo is just it's a screensaver of a game. It's just a ton of pretty cars driving. That's it. There's nothing else.
Yeah, that premise they're talking about for the movie of...
What is the premise?
Oh, you know, the premise, I believe, is a race car driver who is influenced by playing the game. Like, that's what drives him to be like a professional driver.
So it's like a driving game. It's a driving game version of The Wizard, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. Like Need for Speed at least sounds like it could be, like, you hear that and you're like, okay, sure, that could be a movie franchise. Like Gran Turismo, I just think like Gran Torino. Like,
right.
I don't know.
Not the same thing at all, but
maybe that's just me. Although if you want to put Clint Eastwood being super racist in the Gran Turismo movie, then you have sold me on seeing that film.
Sure. Yes, he is racist toward cars that are not American. That is how.
Well, he was in that Ford commercial, right?
He was, right? You know. All right. That's all I got to say about that. What do you got next?
Star Citizen, which is the new in development crowdfunded game from Chris Roberts, who you would know from Wing Commander and Origin. That game has raised more than $20 million in crowdfunding, which is just, I cannot even fathom that number. Like, they've done a lot of private funding on the side where they've continued to raise money through their site. I don't have the number here in front of me, but I remember someone sort of crunched the numbers, and the ratio of backers to funds makes the average backer just astronomical. Like, I think it's like well over $100 or something like that. And in the they put out a trailer as part of I think it was an AMD event this week, and the game looks fucking cool. Like, I was huge into Wing Commander back in the day, and the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games. And it's been a long time since we've had a proper sort of like space sim. I got really into the Colony Wars games. I would, if there was any sort of like old Psygnosis franchise that I would love for Sony to revisit, it is not Wipeout. Like, please go make a modern Colony Wars game. Like, that game was gorgeous and fun to play, and I would do anything for another one of those. But yeah, I don't know if you've seen the trailer for Star Citizen, but
I have not yet.
Yeah, highly recommended it. I'm just amazed at the amount of support they have gotten for the game. You've got,
it's a crazy ass number.
It is a really crazy number, 20 million. But you know what? They're going for it, and people are supporting them, and they've put out stuff so far. There's a hangar demo, or I guess it's called a hangar module, for people that have backed the game, and if you can still back it and get access to it. That basically allows you to sort of walk around a hangar that will eventually, be in the actual game. It's just impressive all around, and I hope it turns out to be good, because if you're raising that much money, the stakes seem awful high. But yeah, just a crazy number. $20 million. I don't even know what to do with that kind of money.
Yeah, and it's just
smarter people than I.
It's just crazy to actually think about that as a crowdfunding number, because you think about the number. It's like you said, the apparently the top donations are pretty in the high range, but like the sheer volume of people that would have to get together to make that number happen is pretty insane. I mean, it's hard enough to get people rounded up to do something that's really obviously a popular franchise reboot or something like that, so seeing this many people get together for something like that is kind of nuts. But I love it. I love that it happened. I love that they are at that kind of number, and they're working toward it. And I will check out that trailer as soon as this is done, because that sounds like it could be pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks really nice. All right, well, you got anything else on your end?
Yeah, I got a couple more. We talked a little bit about this before with the college football stuff, and I know most people tend to have their eyes roll back in their head as soon as we're talking about sports, so I'll make this quick.
It is. This is fascinating, though, I think.
Yes, this is kind of fascinating because it's like there's this whole legal thing with EA and the NCAA and the College Licensing Corporation and all that stuff, where they, at one point, it looked like EA was still going to make a college football game next year, despite the fact that they had sort of separated from the NCAA to basically try and get out of the way of this crazy lawsuit that's going on between players and the NCAA over likenesses and rights. And basically, college players want to get paid. That is the ultimate thing in all of this. They want to be, compensated for both their efforts and their likenesses being used and their names being used and all that stuff. EA has been trying to find a way out of this for a while.
Yeah, like, to make that clear, like when you are a collegiate athlete, you can't, accept endorsements, you can't sign autographs and take money for that. Like, not only do you not make money from being a collegiate athlete, but you can't go outside of that. And if you look, was it Johnny Manziel is a name you should look up if you want to see a really talented guy who has gotten in hot water over doing some of this stuff, but
only gotten a slap on the wrist for it, really.
Right, and then that's where the tension of this exists is that they are not allowed to indulge in their own popularity, and then also don't make any money off of people making money on the backs of their popularity. So continue.
So EA and the College Licensing Corporation were also involved in this lawsuit that's going on right now over the likenesses in the game and such. And so EA has settled the suit. They are out of the suit. They have settled with the plaintiffs, and on top of that, they are not making a game next year. Originally, they believed that they would be able to do so because most of the major conferences were still, obviously tied to the College Licensing Corporation. But then different conferences started saying they didn't want to do it. A bunch of schools dropped out. So EA has just said, nope, we're not doing one next year, which is the first time in a very long time that EA has not done any college football game that I'm aware of.
Are they gonna maintain that line even though the lawsuit's been settled?
Yeah, I think that they're still not going to do one next year. Now, they're still leaving it open to the idea that they could, bring it back at some point. I think once all this kind of gets sorted out with the NCAA and, the people kind of get a sense of, like, where the money is. Like, is the money going to start going to the players? Are we going to have to start paying royalty fees, to that kind of stuff? Is there going to be some sort of collegiate players union or something that we're going to have to deal with? There's a whole lot of unknowns right now. I think that's why EA is just sort of like slowly backing away, saying, look, you guys sort this shit out over here. We're going to wait. We can make another game. That's not that hard. We just take last year's Madden engine and then like erase all the names and then just put numbers on it, and then there are fight songs, and there you go. Enjoy. So it's not hard for them to get back into this if they want to. The problem is there's so many unknowns and there's so many weird things going on, and the NCAA is still being so hostile to this whole paying players thing that they can't really do anything, especially if schools are going to start dropping out and saying, no, we don't want to license our school to this. And, it's like at a certain point you have half the available schools, and that's not a game. That's not a game anyone wants to play because it's not authentic.
I mean, well, also that's part of the appeal is that you can play as your alma mater or whatever your favorite team is having those logos and those fight songs and those schools is part of the reason you're playing this game, right? Like it's why people don't sell, or you go look at Backbreaker. Like it's why you don't sell an NFL game without the players and the teams. Like it's just that's a huge part of the appeal besides building a solid game.
Right. So, with that in mind, there is no college football next year. I imagine some people are probably pretty bummed about that, but, considering everything going on, I can't see a scenario in which this could have really gone any other way. Like when EA was just talking about making college football 2015 or whatever, I remember thinking to myself, well, if everybody's on board, I guess this works, but is everybody going to be on board? And then lo and behold, like a week later, a bunch of schools started dropping out. So it was like, there's just no way to do it. And, for my money, I totally think players should get paid. I totally think that this is the way the tide is turning. I think that for a very long time, especially on the football side, lesser degree on the basketball side, the NFL and the NBA have basically gotten free minor leagues for years. They've basically not had to build their own farm system because they have one right there, ready-made for them, for as long as they want it. And so, at a certain point, that was going to have to get fixed, and it's still going to have to get fixed because there's too much money going around to the people not actually doing the work. The coaches are getting paid exorbitant amounts of money. The people
in charge of the departments are getting paid, crazy amounts of money. I saw some random headline, but some athletic director at one of the schools who was complaining about the idea of paying for athletes was, he's making $900,000 a year. It's like, well, of course you can be in a position to file that complaint when you're the one going home with, nearly six figures.
$1 million a year, yeah. And it's like there are coaches that are making like $5 million a year at some of the biggest schools, and that's fucking crazy when you consider that all the players get is like I mean, yes, they get a scholarship, they get an education. That is a key thing, and that is an important thing. But they should they also don't really get much to live off of, and they can't do anything to sort of further their own personal their name or their brand or anything other than just existing within the structure of a noteworthy school. That's the only thing you can do is just try to go to the best school to get you the most exposure,
or get a fake girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly, and that's and I think that's going to have to change at this point. And once that does, I imagine that EA will probably want to get back into it. Though I also wonder how much EA is really going to want to get back into it if they have to start paying a whole bunch of royalties to a whole bunch of players. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I think what's going to be curious is some of there's an internal memo either on Polygon or Kotaku where they talked about how both these games are built in Florida at the Tiburon studio in I think Orlando, and they don't have a game to put the team that builds the college games on necessarily. Like they're there to build the college games every year, and they're going to try and reappropriate these people. And I think the phrase was that most of the jobs will be saved. But But that's, I mean, I don't think it's as simple as if they decide to get back in it, if they figure out the money side, they're not going to be able to just slot a team back in, especially if this goes on for a year or two. And then they have to build a whole new collegiate team all over again. So it's a lot of balls in the air that are really confusing. And it's going to be
in the air.
Yeah. Where's your sound effect? I thought you'd be. I thought you'd be ready with it. There you go. See. So it'll be curious to see what happens. But I think it's a fascinating story, even if you don't really follow football or play football games. Just sort of that tension between people making a lot of money and not wanting to give that money to the people that are sort of building that money for them is fascinating to watch.
Agreed. I don't got a whole lot left. I don't know what you got.
How about I just get pissed off for a little bit about this Nosgoth game?
Okay. Yeah, tell me about Nosgoth, because I'm a Legacy of Kain dabbler. I've certainly, I've played some of the games over the years, and I'm aware of the franchise. I think it's pretty good. I don't know a goddamn thing about this Nosgoth thing except for the fact that everybody seems pretty pissed off about it. Tell me more, Patrick.
Well, so Legacy of Kain, put aside the first Blood Omen, the original game, which I have played but don't have any particular fondness for. I'm specifically speaking about the Soul Reaver end of Legacy of Kain. Absolutely one of my favorite franchises. Like, I mean, Amy Hennig, wrote the stories for these, so big shock that they're wonderful and really interesting. Some of my favorite games of that era, I played the original Soul Reaver like multiple times. I beat it on PS2. I beat it on Dreamcast when they put out the better version looking of that. I beat it again on PC. I was obsessed with that game. And even though the way that franchise went out wasn't particularly great, as they sort of closed the Soul Reaver arc, just really great characters, a fun, interesting world that had really interesting dynamics between the idea of vampires and humans, had a really progressive, crazy gameplay mechanic early on where you were switching between different worlds that transformed the environment around you. Just awesome top to bottom. And I was fine with the fact that the franchise was basically dead. But Nosgoth is sort of insulting and infuriating because it looked like they were trying to get the franchise off the ground. Now, there's abandoned concept art and design work floating around for, I think it's called Black Sun or something along those lines.
Right.
But basically, Crystal Dynamics was building a big-budget, next-gen Legacy of Kain game. They've been rumored to be doing that for a number of years now. And I guess that game got canceled.
Right.
Alongside that, they were building this game called Nosgoth, which was going to be a multiplayer-only, I don't know if it's free-to-play, but let me take a wild guess and say free-to-play, take on that universe, which, if paired with a single-player game, I think, sure, whatever, that's fine. Like, that is no sweat off my back. But the fact that they canceled one and then are continuing to bring out the other, there's no reason for this game to invoke the Legacy of Kain universe except to infuriate people like myself and to capitalize on a franchise that has been dead for a number of years. And if it was going to remain dead, that's just fine. But to call it Nosgoth, to invoke a franchise that is beloved by a lot of people purely to capitalize on the interest that people have in a legacy franchise, that frustrates me, and I don't see any sort of reason for them to have to do that except just to be like, well, we could just have this a game about vampires and humans, but we got this Legacy of Kain franchise. It's just frustrating because it's taking advantage of fans without rewarding the reason that they are fans in the first place. The game could be perfectly fine. Maybe it'll be a lot of fun, and that's okay. But why does it have to be called Legacy of Kain? I think that they just set themselves up for failure, and there's a reason that when that trailer debuted on YouTube, that they locked the comments because they knew where this was going.
Someone in the chat just now made the salient point that this is probably the same argument you could have made when they announced that Syndicate first-person shooter when that came out. It's like that is not what you necessarily want when you look at the name Syndicate and you go, okay, oh, you're making a new Syndicate. Wait a minute, that's not the thing that I liked. Why are you making that thing? But it's not the thing that I liked. it's like you said, it's not rewarding the people who were interested in it to begin with, and while making something completely different with a name that you're familiar with. In this case, in the case of Syndicate turned out pretty good, I thought.
Sure.
I didn't love it as much as Jeff did, but I thought that was a pretty great game. This could be fine. This could be totally interesting and entertaining, but it does seem like an even more intensely divergent split from what people are familiar with that stuff. Because, like you said, those are games that are known for their storytelling. They're known for their characterizations. They're known for the single player progression of that stuff, is why people play those games. And so to do a multiplayer thing that is, I think, theoretically free to play, and could be fine. It just doesn't seem like it has any of those tenets of what you would expect if you were going in saying, yeah. I mean, I think that's why it's not called Legacy of Kain, whatever. Nosgoth, is that what they
Yeah.
I'm saying it right? Okay, but it could also still be fine. You could still there could still be some element of that you like in there, and there could still actually be some for all you know it could surprise you.
Yeah, and you know that and that's all completely true. And like putting aside like that is me fanboy ranting.
Yeah.
You gotta feel for the developers in this scenario where they were assigned a project that was going to be the multiplayer pairing to a single-player game from Crystal Dynamics, and in this instance, this would be doing it right. It's not shoehorning multiplayer into a game that doesn't need it. It's saying, let someone go off and do their own thing. We'll do this multiplayer, game set in the universe, and it'll be free to play. We'll be able to experiment with a different business model, but the fans will be able to say whatever because we're building them this Legacy of Kain game. But we're not getting the other part, so instead we're just left with the part that is sort of infuriating if you're a fan. So they're right to leave Legacy of Kain out of it, and if they're smart, they won't do anything more to shoehorn sort of fiction into it than they are, because I think that'll just get people more frustrated. But yeah, I mean, these people have been assigned to build something they thought was going to be paired with something else, and now it's not. And there's no way they can really win except if the game is really good. So I hope
it has to be good on its own merits. It has to be good completely removed from whatever fiction and whatever universe you're lifting from. It has to be an enjoyable game completely separate from that, because that's the only way you're going to get people to talk nice about it. Because if the only thing you have going for you is that you're kind of trading off an old franchise and it's not that great of a game otherwise, people are just going to eviscerate you. That's just had the way of the game industry. So
yeah,
good luck with that.
Yeah, so there's a beta. I don't know if that's closed or open or what the deal is, but I am intensely interested in seeing what that is all about, and will attempt to go in with eyes wide open as much as possible. A free-to-play multiplayer game, not sort of my thing, so we're sort of already stacking the deck here.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem right there.
But I am at least just to satisfy my own curiosity, I would like to see what they've been building.
Indeed. I got a couple of shorty things here. I don't know if you've got any other big headlines at this point.
No, there's short stuff. Why don't we run through yours and we'll see if anything else
I was just
stands
going to
out
say, some new details about Star Wars 1313 came out. There's actually an article up today on Kotaku sort of going down some of the different projects that LucasArts abandoned, including an HD Day of the Tentacle remake that was apparently almost done. Patrick, how sad are you about all this stuff right now?
I mean, that stuff in particular is really frustrating because when they did the Secret of Monkey Island HD update, I mean, they did it as well as you can do one of those updates. They gave you new art, and they also let you switch back to the old art. So if you didn't like what they had done with the updated graphics, then that's fine. Go play the original game. And they seemed like that was a fucking template to go and go through all the other 2D games, adventure games that they had put out of that era. It gets a little more complicated once you get into like the 3D stuff like Grim Fandango, because you've got 3D assets and pre-rendered backgrounds, and
right.
That's a taller order. But yeah, I mean, I've never played Day of the Tentacle.
You should. It's pretty good.
I bet. And
it's a pretty good game.
And that's what I was looking forward to with a lot of these updates, was an opportunity to go back and play these games both in a modern context, but without losing, what they were beloved for in the first place. And I think it's just tragic, and there it seems like that, in the House of Disney, we're never going to get any of that stuff because it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the scale of money that they're talking about now. Maybe there's an opportunity. I know Tim Schafer has talked about maybe having the ability to negotiate, having Double Fine maybe shepherd some of that stuff, if they can sort of negotiate one-offs with them. But, I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope, and that bums me out because that would have been really great to see all of those games available, for modern machines and with some nice updates because they did it as well as they could have done with that first Monkey Island, I thought.
I highly recommend checking out that Kotaku article if you like making yourself sad, because there's a whole lot of abandoned stuff in there that sounded like could have been pretty cool if things had not been horribly mismanaged over there for the last couple of years. Lastly, South Park is coming this year.
How excited are you? How excited is Alex Navarro?
Extremely. I'm glad it's making it under the wire this year. There's going to be plenty to play over the course of December, certainly, especially with the 7,000 games that are coming out between November 15th and November 27th. But that said, I will make time for South Park. I will go out of my way to make sure I can play that because that game looked pretty goddamn fun the last time I saw it.
Yeah, I think South Park is a game that we always get these December games, and you're never quite sure how to deal with them, whether it's going to be the kind of December game that's being put out in December because we want to get it out before Christmas, and it's not going to be that good, or it's one of those December games that it's just the way it worked out, and it could be a secret Game of the Year contender, and I have a sneaking suspicion that South Park could be one of those games that ends up in my personal top 10.
It could, yeah. I also think that they're trying to time it toward the end of the next this current South Park season because it just premiered this week, and I think that if they're doing the number of episodes I think they're doing, that should time out to about the time when that season ends, I think.
Okay.
So that would make some sense as well. So here's hoping it's good.
Yeah, the new trailer was funny. All the trailers continue to sort of play up the humor and the cutscene stuff as opposed to a whole lot of the gameplay. Not going to say that worries me because if I was Ubisoft or THQ Marketing, that's what I would do too. That's how you want to sell this to a wider audience. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. I want this to be amazing, and I'm really hoping that it's going to be good.
A bunch of people in the chat are saying they don't know what kind of game it is. I'm telling you, it's Paper Mario with cursing. I've seen it. I've seen people actually play it, and it is straight up like turn-based RPG combat in a world where you were wandering around as a 2D character, and it is pretty fucking great what I've seen of it. So I'm hoping that it actually it turns out that to sustain that for however many dozens of hours it ends up being. So,
and they have cited Earthbound as a major inspiration for developing this game.
Great.
So,
by all means.
And by that I mean Matt and Trey, not Obsidian.
Right.
Those guys you would not necessarily pin as old school JRPG lovers, but you go read some interviews with them, and yeah, they know their shit as much as you would expect someone like them to know their shit. So, there's some other small stuff. Let's see, they're teasing the next Persona game. It appears looks like there will be a Persona 5 announcement in late November. I'm very much looking forward to finally playing Persona 4: The Golden when it gets cold. That seems like a perfect winter game. So.
Oh, totally. Because that's the sort of thing you just sort of curl up next to a fire and just sit there and play for hours and hours on end. But I'm curious, how excited are you for Persona 4 Ultimate, the Ultimax Ultra Suplex Hold?
Those games don't hold any reverence for me because I haven't played the games yet. Like half of the reason you want to play these.
How excited are you about that title?
Oh, it's amazing. And I think Jeff's video title on the site is goddamn incredible too. That's a good name. That's a really good name.
Yeah.
Toon Link added to Smash Brothers. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have to say.
Winter's so hot right now. It's so hot.
This Xbox Fitness stuff I think could be really interesting. It leaked, but basically it's going to be a subscription-based service that has all sorts of different trainers, and there are references to having like P90X and some other things that are trendy in the fitness world as part of your Xbox. And I've goofed around with the idea of doing P90X, and I think I would sign up for an Xbox fitness thing just to give it a shot. So if that stuff works, they could have me interested. And the last thing I saw was Kingdoms of Amalur IP auction starts on November 14th, including things like Rise of Nations is going to be up for sale.
So it's basically everything that other studio that they bought had under their IP list.
Yeah. I mean, the Project Copernicus is going to be up for sale, too. No one ended up buying that. I'll be curious to see if anyone buys the assets. But, if no one bought it at this point, I think the ship has sailed on anyone even coming in and finishing that. I should have mentioned...
That game's never going to happen. Never going to happen. So.
Yeah. I guess I should have mentioned slightly earlier, but if people have questions, shoot them to me in the chat. Just at me, and we will pluck a few as we start to wind down this show. Do you have anything on the docket that you're going to be playing this weekend?
This weekend is mostly going to be more GTA. I'm going to finally start in on the Wind Waker Redux, which I downloaded last week, but I've not had a chance to sit down and play yet. I'm going to take so many goddamn selfies in that game; it's going to be ridiculous. Other than that, I have a bunch of games I'm going to be playing next week, so I'm going to try and get through as much of my backlog this week as I can this weekend.
Yeah, that's kind of my plan too. Is like I have made precious little progress in Grand Theft Auto. And I started looking at the release lineup, and I've got time. Like, there's not a whole lot in between now and when things really kick off at the end of October, where you've got Batman, Uncharted, or Assassin's Creed 4, and then of course there's a lot of stuff coming in November. Probably the big game I'm looking forward to in October is the Stanley Parable, which will the full-on sequel remake thing will be coming out in October. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
After that weird-ass demo we saw at PAX, I'm definitely curious about that one as well.
Yeah. Monkeyman04, he's asking a question a couple people were asking before. Is your TEDx talk going to be filmed? Yeah, from what I understand, it will be live-streamed and archived, so everyone can watch me crash and burn live on the internet. Maybe we'll have that run on the site when that's happening. Because why not? If I'm gonna burn, I might as well burn publicly in front of everyone. That is fucking ominous. I wasn't even looking. I was looking at the chat when that happened. I just freaked the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Degsy Bright asks, when do you think the Kickstarter/crowdfunding bubble is going to burst? What do you think, Alex? Is it going to burst? Is there a burst happening?
Well, if a game makes $20 million through crowdfunding and then somehow doesn't come out, that would probably be a pretty good way for that to burst. But I'm not necessarily saying that will happen. I'm just, it's going to take some really big, spectacular failure for that to happen. Like some big, noteworthy game, like that. Those Double Fine games would have to not come out for that bubble to finally kind of burst. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll come out eventually. But it's going to take some giant disaster for that to finally kill this whole thing, if it's going to be killed at all.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I think everything could fail, and it's still going to stick around. I think it might make people more cautious. It might make the kind of projects we see change a little bit. I definitely think we're starting to hit the bottom of the barrel in terms of pulling out nostalgic IP, or at least
what you're telling me that James Pond isn't the one that you're not super excited about a James Pond remake. You're not looking for Booger Man to come back.
You know what? I would get behind a Booger Man.
I got an email about Booger Man the other day. Someone's trying to bring back Booger Man. I can't remember if it's through crowdfunding or not, but someone is apparently working on some sort of Booger Man thing right now.
If you want to leave the games press and go be the creative director of a new Booger Man, Alex, I would not judge you.
I don't have that in my list. It's not on my bucket list, but yeah, I don't think so. Chris Trammell is working on a new Booger Man. It is not a crowdfunding project that I'm aware of, but there's apparently some new Booger Man going on.
Video game industry.
Oh, they do have a Kickstarter campaign. There's a Booger Man Kickstarter out there right now. You should go look for it.
What? Shut up.
I don't know if it's up yet or not, but apparently they are gonna try and reboot Booger Man on Kickstarter.
Oh,
that is happening.
Kill me now. I was
the guy who emailed was so happy to talk to us about it. Oh.
I was being facetious.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ba 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 ba. Drop a bomb on it. Says, do you think the Steam machines will have any effect on the sales of next-gen consoles? No.
No.
It's for that to have any effect in the wider market is way too early.
It's going to take It's going to take long, sustained success for that to actually start impacting what all the other companies are already doing.
Yeah. Not to say that there won't eventually be some sort of impact, but I think it is far too early for anything like that to happen. Are they coming to arrest you?
It gets real loud here when the sirens start coming around. It's not much I can do about it, unfortunately.
No, I know. Let's see. Oh, Ted Muerti has a really good question for you, Alex. Why did you put up another Assassin's Creed 4 trailer?
I don't know. It had been a couple weeks since we did one.
Has it been a couple of weeks?
It had been a couple of weeks, and I felt like I had a pirate joke to make, so I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll throw this one up. Why not?
Okay, all right. As long as you felt like you had a joke to go with it.
Yeah, I wasn't like stretching. I mean, if I felt like I couldn't come up with anything to say about it, I'd probably just been like, whatever. But no, I figured why not? Pirates.
Monkey Stick asks, have you checked out the horror game Damned on Steam? No, someone linked to me that earlier today. I guess it's a multiplayer horror game. I don't know exactly what that means, but that sounds like something fun that we should check out. Vinny and I had a lot of fun doing Cry of Fear back when I was in the office, so maybe we'll think about trying to do something with Damned. But it's an early access game, and we're always pretty careful about how we handle that stuff, and horror games in particular are strange for early access because it's all about the nuance and the scares, so the idea of playing a horror game before it's finished is kind of inherently not that interesting to me, but we'll see. I've had a couple people link me to it, and I think that would be fun to check out.
Early access to horror game. Horror not actually in game yet.
Yeah, that's that's pretty accurate actually.
Yeah.
Not sure there's too much else. Oh, I guess the Legacy of Kain game is called Dead Sun, as pointed out by Common Reason. So if people want to look that up, do Google search. There is a bunch of stuff out there on that. But I think that's going to wrap us up. I think that's enough for Bombin the A.M. We already talked about what we're doing this weekend. So I guess I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna fade. Into the mist.
I'm
gonna fade into the mist. But Alex, I will see you on Monday.
Woo.